Are we good? Can you hear me? Yeah, you're close. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome tonight. Thanks for coming out. I'm very pleased to welcome to campus Katherine Shaughnessy. She's a multidisciplinary artist based in Boise. She received her MFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. She's had solo exhibitions in Chicago, Marfa, Texas, and Albuquerque. And her work has been in group shows at the Cleveland Museum of Art, the National Museum of Women in the Arts, Port Angeles Fine Arts Center, Boise Art Museum, Sun Valley Museum of Art, and most recently at Maintenance, is that how you pronounce it? Maintenance? Oh, no, okay. In Marfa, Texas. That was in spring of this year. Where am I in my notes? Her work is in many private and public collections, including the Wasmus Center of Human Rights in Boise. She is also the co-founder and curator of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a dynamic community of artists and entrepreneurs who share space and collaborate and network in an old factory located in Garden City, Iowa. This is how I first came to know Katherine, and you're going to talk some about the Commonwealth tonight, so I won't go any further with it. So join me, give Katherine a strong EOU welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to say a few more words too of background and then get started showing slides. But thank you so much for having me. Special thanks to Corey Peak and Nightingale Gallery and Eastern Oregon University for the invitation. It's been a great day to be on your campus meeting with students in their studios, in the gallery, and via the art that they are submitting to the all-campus exhibition that I had the honor to jury today. Like Corey said, I come to you from Boise, Idaho, where I am an artist, curator, and arts administrator at the Commonwealth. It's an art space I co-founded 4 years ago in Garden City. It's in an old bottling factory that now serves as studio and office space for artists and entrepreneurs, as well as a contemporary gallery and home to an innovative residency program for local artists. It's not quite a nonprofit yet, but we do have a 501c3 fiscal sponsor via our neighbor, Searles Place, and are supported by local foundations, individual donors, and our members who pay rent to have studios, workspace there. If you are ever in Boise, please stop by, say hi, come see what we're up to. It's kind of a free space. You can wander in and walk around and see artists at work and art in the gallery spaces. We have pop-up spaces as well. And coincidentally, right now, our main exhibit is called Object Lessons, and it's on view till the end of the month. And it's featuring Lydia Ritchie from Philadelphia and your beloved Corey Peak. So that show is up till the end of the month. So if you haven't seen it, I know a couple people have seen it from here, please come by and check it out. It's really, really, really wonderful. And we'll speak about that in a few minutes. Just a little bit more, I just wanted to say that I'm a mother of 2 college students, one at Boise State and one at Leiden University in the Netherlands. My husband is the director of the local NPR station in Boise, at Boise State University. I grew up in a big family in Ohio, and after college, I left my childhood home and spent a couple years in DC. Then I moved over to Chicago, went to art school there, and somehow ended up in Marfa, Texas. It's a little art town in West Texas in the high desert. And then about 10 years ago, I moved to Boise. So, and then let me just tell you a little bit about my art making. So even though I've been making art my whole life, since I was a very little child, mostly started in sewing, was sort of my first entry. Since I'm on a college campus right now, I feel I need to share a story. I actually started out in college in pre-med, and I did that for 2 years. I love science, and I was deep into it, but I thought it was more the responsible thing to do rather than be making art. But luckily, a very young and observant, I remember he had red hair, grad student named Mark, who looked at my drawings one day in a zoology class, my lab, and he says, "And why are you not majoring in art?" And that very afternoon, I walked over to the art department, changed my major, and have been pursuing my art career ever since. So I was only 20, and he was probably 23, all the wiser at his 23-year-old self, who just, so you never know what a grad student can do for you. Anyway, I'm so glad for Mark, wherever he is in the world. Probably a scientist somewhere. But over the years, I've continued to be interested in science, nature, and politics. And these subjects have been consistent side quests of mine that have interlaced their way into my art practice. Early on, I focused on painting and drawing, but after discovering the fiber art department at the School of the Art Institute, where I did my graduate work, I found that I was always truly an interdisciplinary-minded artist. I learned to weave there, I built a vast vocabulary of materials, and began making work that spoke to the then new field of bioengineering, of all things. I'm still interested in, or I should say, more fascinated and horrified by humans and how we try to out-science or one-up nature and are continually pushing up against the natural flow of life. As you will see in my work, it's often political in that I'm reacting or responding to issues of our time as we humans try to live on this planet Earth. So for tonight, what I've done is selected 10 recent works, very recent, so from 2019 on. There's more work on my website if you're interested with details and stuff. And my website, my name is very hard to spell. So give it a go, but if you can't, because it's myname.com, katherineshaughnessy.com, but you can also find it at doughgirl.com, which was a bioengineering work I did 30 years ago, like I said. So that's doegirl.com, which is just much easier. But I'm going to share 10 works, and they're all kind of following the similar themes. And then I'm going to show you 4 exhibitions that I've curated at the Commonwealth over the past 4 years, my favorites. And then we'll try and save a few minutes at the end for questions. So let's go ahead and start. So that piece is called Swallowed by the Sea, and I made that with an iPhone, very crude. The image is actually of the little stage is only 2 inch by 2 inch by 2 inch. It's an ice cube that's 2 inches as well. But I originally made it wanting it to be projected, and it was, when it first exhibited, it was a projection. I wanted the tree, it's supposed to be a 2,000-year-old olive tree. I wanted it to be that big. So actually it's pretty close on this screen. And it also showed at the Boise Art Museum in their triennial a couple years ago. That was made in 2019. It's kind of obvious what it is, so I don't know that I have to go into much more detail on it, but we'll just say a moment for Jules Abramovich was my good friend and piano teacher who performed that. I gave him the video. I said, "You want to collaborate?" He was almost 90, and he said, yes. And I said, "I want you to pick the most saddest song you can possibly come up with, because this is tragic." And indeed, he did well. So we recorded that on my phone in his garage studio back in 2019, and he has passed away. So to Jules, I miss you. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show are something I made. I started making these border paintings in 2019 as a response to the walls starting to go up and the bridges coming down. After 9/11, they took a lot of bridges off of the Rio Grande that had connected people for hundreds of years. as a security measure, and then it's just gotten worse and continues. So little routes that would have taken 10 minutes by foot turned into 14 hours by car because you couldn't get across the river unless it was low enough in parts and times of the year, but often it's raging and huge and there's no crossing it because it's just too dangerous. And also if you were on a car, you couldn't, wade across. So anyway, so I made these. These are just from wooden boards that have, I've carved the river into the existing lines made from the grain of the wood. And so carved in, and then on each side, one side is covered in olive oil and the other side is honey and salt. And then I sort of, in some of the places, made imaginary bridges to go across. And these are, I spent a lot of time down on the river, having lived just north of it in that little town I was telling you about, Marfa. And so it kind of, when I left, I made these in Boise. But when I left, I moved here in 2016, and things really started amping up in the fall of 2016. So I was very much missing my last home and started making this work in response to that. Yeah, these also showed in that triennial show. Okay, so then this next work is called Tempest Tossed, and it is, the piece here, what you're seeing is, it's on the rooftop of this building at the Port Angeles Fine Arts Center. I don't know if anybody's ever been over there, but it's a great little art center in Port Angeles, Washington. And so what you're seeing is on the top of the roof, sort of to the right-hand side, there's this glowing orb up there, and that's my piece called Tempest Tossed. It is, I'll give you a closer look of it. This is what it is. So it's a sculpture that's made to scale to match the flame from the Statue of Liberty, which is where the title comes from. If you'll remember, this is one stanza. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And that was written by Emma Lazarus as a fundraiser for the pedestal for the new sculpture that France gave us in 1886, I think it was. And she had written that. And, it was the statue was meant to be a symbol of celebration at the close of slavery, actually. So it was like, okay, slavery is over. They gave this to the United States to express freedom and enlightenment. And yet, I didn't mean to hit that yet. But then, and a lot of people were like, we don't really have freedom yet because, women still couldn't vote, people couldn't own land, slavery wasn't really totally gone yet. So there was a bit of a pushback against it, but I kind of picked that again at this time when I thought, I really think it's still a valid effort, and wanted to really go back to that as an option. And so what it is, it's lit from within with solar lights, and it's made out of pounded copper that I pulled from a scrapyard in Boise, and then pounded the copper pipes flat, and then kind of wove this basket together with copper screening as well. It's actually quite patinaed now. It was also on a rooftop in Seattle for a long time at Equinox Studios, and now it's back in Boise. I put it on the back of a truck and drove it over, kind of right through here probably. Anyway, there's that. And then the next piece kind of started, it's a series of pieces. I call it Ginsberg's Gauntlet. It started as a drawing I did at the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was pretty bummed out after she died, and then even more bummed out when they wouldn't replace her when Biden was still president. So they were going to just hold out until Trump became president. So I thought that was not very kind. And so I went to the Idaho Supreme Court, which ironically is the place where Ruth Bader Ginsburg had her very first case, supporting the idea of human rights And guess what? She was supporting a man. So she defended a man in a case called Reed v. Reed in 1971. And when I found this out, and I was like, she came out to Boise, and so it's kind of where she launched her career as a young woman. She was assigned to this case. So I took one of her collars, which became her thing, not the dissent collar, but this is a collar that she got from somebody from South Africa, from Cape Town, gave it to her. And it's in response to her comments on their constitution, which they recently rewrote and kind of made it really all-inclusive. And she said it was really good. And then she got some slack from her colleagues who said, that's not cool, ours is better, but actually theirs is better than ours, because it really includes everybody. So I thought that was really cool that she would wear this when she would win a case. So I made a replica of it on the ground here in front of the Idaho Supreme Court, which got hosed off immediately. The media came down and tried to record it, and they had already hosed it off, even though I got permission from the mayor because it is public property, but they said it's totally cool to do chalk drawings. So anyway, and my daughter was in there too. She helped me. Here she is. She was like 15 at the time, I think. So then after this, I had a lawyer friend ask me if I would do a permanent piece. They were like, I want one of those in my office. So I started thinking about how we would make that, and I came up with an idea. And then I liked it so much, I made 12 of them and dedicated each one to a different one of her cases that I thought were really great human rights cases. And then one of them I donated to the Wasmuth Center for Human Rights because they were dedicating their entryway to Ginsburg, and that just opened a couple years ago. So you can see one of these 12. The rest of them are all over the world, but this one is in Boise, and it looks like this. And so I did each of these by carving into the wood like this, and then filled it with wet plaster, sanded it down, and burned it with a torch. I really wanted, we were talking about this today with some of the painters, I didn't want it to be black paint, even though I wanted to reference the robes. So I thought, what's better than black paint? And I was thinking fire. And it's kind of a preservative thing. So I burned everything. And the white plaster resists naturally the fire. It's like an egg and a white and a yolk. Like the yolk kind of stays runny and the white burns first. This is sort of the same idea. So I burned them all. I covered them in beeswax and sealed them kind of like a memorial to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So then the next work I did was, this is just some work. I do a lot of drawing and painting, but I just wanted to show these. These are just me, again, looking at blocks of wood and following the grain, if you will, as opposed to making up my own. I mean, I'm making my own drawings, but I'm following the grain of the wood and thinking about the aberrations on, so like a tree gets injured and then it keeps repeating itself year after year, and either it absorbs it and becomes smooth again, or it has this tumor-like aberration that continues. And that kind of work came out of what was going on at the time in my life where I got breast cancer, and so then I was thinking a lot about cancer and of these things, and I had to go through treatment and all that fun jazz. So that's what these guys are about. And at the same time, I was making this work. These are 20 small paintings. They're 8 by 8 paintings, collages, relief paintings. This is at the Sun Valley Museum of Art, these works. And they represent 20 days of radiation treatment. And what I did was, when I knew I had to go do this, I thought, because I had to basically stop a lot of things, and a lot of people have to do this, and I'm grateful that it was caught. This was just a way maybe to process and heal faster. So I would go in to get the radiation, and you're kind of in a frozen position and you can't move. So I would just look and hear and feel the different temperatures and sounds and movements and try and memorize them. It's a good practice, actually. Try and memorize images and stuff in my head. I couldn't write it down and take a picture. And then go back to my studio, and I would have one day to just make a piece. So these are the pieces I made from that. And so and that torch was sitting on my studio because I just finished the Ginsburg work. And I was like, heck, I'm getting burned. I'm going to use the torch. So I started drawing with it, carving into the wood, making these little things, and really trying to think about what I was seeing earlier in the day. So these have to do with the machines and all this stuff. And I would just try and remember stuff. So I just have a couple of them here. And this piece is called Radiant Interlude, because I did feel like this was a moment where I had to stop, and it was just everything I was doing and just really focus on healing. This one is like the arc. There was this machine that just kept going over me. So it's not just like images. It was actually movement and temperature and all of those things. So that's what that is. And then the next work, oh, and then I pick up this whole thing again. This is the last piece of the whole series where it was sort of a little bit, I painted it with gold and stuff, but I felt like it had been resolved. So this was sort of the resurrection piece or whatever. Thank you, doctors. Okay, so then this is the work I'd been working on kind of all along for about 5 years, from 2020 to 2025. And I'd moved studios a couple times, and I had, 2 interruptions because of medical things, and I had a lot of interruptions. But this is a body of work that I finished last summer, and it's 308 panels. Again, I like the grid, clearly, that I carved the Rio Grande into the panels. It's the border of Texas and Mexico. So from El Paso all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, it's 1,200 miles. So each one of these panels represents about 8 square miles, and you read it left to right, top to bottom, like a book. And this is exhibited on an adobe wall in an adobe church, the first church in Marfa, Texas, last summer. But each of them do connect, even though to connect them edge to edge, it would be a very long diagonal, and it would just take up several city blocks. But so I did it like this in a grid. And I kind of equate it to erasing the border, because I kind of wanted to not identify which side was Mexico and which side was the United States. Sometimes they're left-right, sometimes they're top-bottom. Sometimes the U.S. is actually underneath Mexico, the way it undulates and turns and everything when you chop it up like this. So this piece is called Broken. And at the same time, and this is just to show you how it was, like, that's me carving it. That was actually the Gulf. So that piece to the right, that's the last piece on the bottom right. So that's the Gulf of Mexico on the far right. And then I would fill them with plaster, sand them down. And, oh, here's just a little video. These are my kids and their friends. They all grew up together helping me put this up last summer. It was kind of a lot of work to hang the darn thing. But they liked that I was doing one of these time-lapse. So then after that, while I'm going to tell you about the next piece. So with this body of work, I came up, I needed one more piece for this exhibition, because I've been working on this for so long, and it was to me like a vascular line of like connecting these two nations, and like we can't have one without the other. I mean, it's a connecting piece, even though I called it broken, because it is broken right now. But I made this other piece that I call complementary, and it's this brown fabric that's hanging on the wall. So when you walked in the gallery, you see it from about 30 feet away, and it just looks like a piece of burlap with a white line down the middle. And that's a closer up of it. And it's a flag. There's grommets in the top corners. It's the size of a flag. It's 3 by 5 feet. And as you get closer, I don't know if you can see it from there, but the threads are actually red, white, green, and blue. So the way I got that idea was I was in a lecture earlier in the summer. It was all in French. I don't speak French. I know a little, but I didn't matter, because it's an art talk. I could like look at the pictures. It didn't matter. And it was about, it was this French professor who was studying Jasper Johns' negative flag and Donald Judd, who also made a negative flag in 1968 to protest the Vietnam War. So this is a picture of his little book that he made. It's so cute. He wrote his essay, and they published it in this little blue book. And this is an image of Donald Judd's flag that he made. I don't know who made it first. I think Johns made his first, and Judd copied Johns, but who knows. So Jasper Johns made a print, so I think it was screen print, and it was the American flag in blue, orange, and black. He reversed the colors and made them the complementary colors, the negative. And then he put a little dot in the middle, and you're supposed to stare at it, and then probably a lot of you have seen this in your books and learned about this. Then you move your eyes to a gray space, and one of them, he had a gray space below it, and your eye does this optical phenomenon where it changes the blue, orange, and black to red, white, and blue. So he's challenging the viewer to correct the negative thing and make it right. And then Judd made one too. His is actually like a stitched silk flag or whatever. And I'm sitting there and watching this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what if because I'm like a fabric, I don't know why I thought of this, but I was like thinking about Mexico and the United States, and their flags are red, white, and blue, and red, white, and green. And I was like, green and red would make brown. And if you add white, it'll be tan. And I'm like, what if I wove them all together and got this like earthern colored flag? And that became our flag. So that's what I did. But I didn't have a loom at the time. I had not woven since graduate school. So I got back to the United States. I rented a loom. I joined the guild. I got somebody who was retired to come over and help me warp the dang thing. And meanwhile, I unthreaded 2 flags, an American flag and a Mexican flag. And my daughter looked it up because she's pre-law, and she's like, Mom, it's not illegal. You can do this as long as you don't do it in public and make a big scene about it. But if you do get in trouble, it's just a misdemeanor, and that's okay. So we did it. I did it. I'm not giving her any credit for this. She did weave the flag for me. So, because she was on summer break. So anyway, I took this whole thing apart. So that's what it's made of, and that's what all these little knots are, is that I had to knot them back together and make spools of thread in red, white, green, and blue, and then weave the whole thing together. And the line down the middle is basically representing the river, because I had to do it in 2 18-inch pieces because I didn't have a whole 36-inch loom. So I made it an 18-inch and then stitched it together. So that's the piece that's right now in another show called What Are You Fighting For? At Maintenon in Texas again. And that one's called Complementary. Okay, I have one more piece to show you, and then I'm going to show you some art for the art shows. So the last body of work, it's 2 pieces. And this stuff isn't on my website yet because it's pretty brand new. I made out of rage, basically, at what's happening at the border once again, because we're going through like many years of this keeps circling back. So Texas has successfully resisted the idea of walls because the Texas border is mostly national park. It's wild, it's crazy, it's like 100-feet cliffs, kind of like we know out here in the Pacific Northwest, but they still have some of that mountain range that goes all the way down into Mexico. It's an international national park, so it's part in the U.S., part in Mexico. It's gorgeous, and it's not to be touched, and it's very hard to traverse as well, and not many people do. A couple people a year, maybe. So anyway, most of the Texas border is like that, but not all of it. So they've successfully done a lot of California, Arizona. They're really plowing through New Mexico, and now they're really hitting Texas hard. So I took the map from this guy. That's files I made off of Google Earth, 308 files. I took those files, I added the space north of the river and south of their would-be walls that they are planning or have built. And they're doing this right now as I speak. They are bulldozing and doing this all right now. And I was like, people don't even know about this because there's so many fires going on in this country right now that they don't know about the border being bulldozed. And then it's just disrupting everything from people's private land, because it's also a lot of people's private lands. There's people buried in this earth. There's historical archaeological lands. It's really, really, really not good. So I took those files I had on the computer, and I cut them I printed them out larger, added the land, and I called this no man's land. And so these are 308 pieces disordered, not in a grid, made into an iron curtain, and each piece represents about 8 square miles again. But now it's including the land that's getting swallowed up and ceded basically to Mexico. We fought really hard and stole this land, and now we're just giving it away so nobody can enjoy it. No animals can get through this. And what they're doing, so I made this piece and I bisected the gallery. So when you came into the gallery, it is suspended from the ceiling, and then it was held by these bricks on the bottom. And this is our gallery at the Commonwealth. And when you come into the gallery, the idea is where you couldn't walk through it. You could only see one side. And you were told at the door at the entrance, and it was a one-night only show, that you had to give your birth date. And depending on your birth date, if you were even or odd, evens could come through the front door, and if you were odd, you had to go all around to the back of the building, and you could only enter the back. So you couldn't see both sides of the show. So you guys saw them because they were, I think, on posters and stuff. But so this was the front. This is burned. I'm a pyro. I like to burn it, so I burned the whole wood. I probably would have made this out of metal, but I had to make it fast. And I hired someone to help me, a fellow artist, and so we did it together. She cut. We just blasted this out in 2 weeks and they're all zip tied together, and the zip tie is definitely chosen with, for its meaning of what it's doing right now. So this piece is the other side. So this is if you entered from the back. And like I said, and we painted it all gold on one side. And like they said, the other side was black. We had this party, like, it was crazy, like 200 people showed up, and we taught a lot of people what was going on. And you could see both sides if you did one of the advocacy things we had. You could like come and sign a petitions, see if you were registered to vote, call Governor Abbott, call your local representatives, write a letter. There were a lot of things you could do. And then if you did that, you got another stamp, and you could go and have free range and see both sides. And we roasted s'mores. It was really fun, and we had a really good DJ. So that was a really fun party. And these are two people. This is a married couple. They came in and got split up. So one had to go to one side and one to the other side. And then on the outside, I made a shroud that represents the 30 by 10 foot sections of the actual wall they're building. This is to scale. So the wall is there's 6-inch by 6-inch square steel pipes, if you can imagine that, with 4 inches. So not much can get through 4 inches. A baby cub can get through 4 inches, but the mama can't. So then what happens is you separate this, like it's constantly messing with the animals. No antelope can get through, no bears, no javelina, no nothing. But people can actually scale it because we're smart and we know how to do that. But it also messes up the flow of water because there's a lot of flooding down there, and then things get shoved up against it. So this is what they're building. So I wanted to make one that was to scale, so when you stood up against, you would understand how big it is. Our building's 25 feet, so this isn't even 30. It's dragging. It's like not even. So what I wanted to do, and I still want to do, is make about 100 of these and have them all over the country dropping off buildings so people can see. And so that was in front of the Commonwealth, and you can see it's just like a mesh screen that you would use to give shade. The whole show is called Don't Fence Me In, and I think this is a video. This I did just so you can see a walkthrough because it's hard to understand exactly, although I think you might have gotten it. So I have 2 videos, and then that's it. But this is the day after, but for the event, we had somebody stationed right there welcoming you or not welcoming you. And then when you walked in, this is what you would get. And I liked what happened with the shadow. That happened because I put all the gallery lights on one side, so when you would get blinded when you walked in. It's pretty bright here, but it was actually dramatic the way it worked. And then it created that like camo shadowing. Just going to go to the next slide. So then this is from the other side. And I kind of thought it would be bigger. Like I wanted it to be really, like I didn't know how it would happen because I made it so fast. Like I probably would up the scale and made it so that, because a couple people snuck underneath and I was kind of mad at them. I was like, no, no, but yeah. So we kind of like, I wasn't sure how much it would fill up, but it did kind of create this shield that you really couldn't go. And one of the reasons I called it the Iron Curtain was because in 1961, in August, in like a totally normal city in Berlin, in the middle of the night, they started building the Iron Curtain, and within a few weeks, they had built this no man's land right down, and that was there until 1989. So it's like, it happens, and right now, we're getting fenced in. So, okay, so that's my work, and thank you for looking at all that. And like I said, you can see more of it on my website if you wanted some backstories on some of those pieces. But let me talk a little bit about my curatorial practice, which is kind of new. I mean, I've been curating shows since I was in college, and we had group shows and all kinds of stuff for years. And I did lots of other things in Texas and elsewhere, but this is the first time I really like dug in deep and really wanted to like create a space that could be experimental in Boise. And really the idea for it was that artists could come in. I was gonna call it a project space, but then nobody knew what that meant. So then I was like, okay, it's a gallery. But really for artists to come in and try something that they couldn't do in their own studio, or if they didn't even have a studio, and then it could be documented, and then they could farm it out, or like share it, and so that they could maybe show it somewhere else. And I guess my practice there is rooted in openness, serendipity, and breaking the rules, media mashups, surprises. I really love contemporary and conceptual art, materiality, unusual connections, and hopefully edgy. The kind of way I think of it, if I'm not super nervous the night before an opening, I think I might not have pushed the envelope enough. So the first one I'm going to show is a show by an artist, Bill Lewis. And this show was a lot of fun to do. He created all this work a summer after his father had passed away, so it has a lot to do with his father. They're all blue paintings. It's called 20 Blue Paintings and 2 Heads of Silver. And it was a wonderful show. He's a wonderful artist. Look him up if you don't know him. He goes by William Lewis online. And these are some drawings in our tiny gallery that was meant to be a closet, but it was too cute, so now it's a gallery. We use it all the time. And these are little drawings on paper that we framed in blue frames. The work was really sad, contemplative, heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And the conversation at the artist talk was really interesting. All these people talking about losing their fathers so it was really interesting. But what we wanted to do was one of our first shows, and we were, how can we introduce the Commonwealth to the community and Bill's work? And so we reached out to our friend Jackie Christ, who was going to write an essay about the show. We were going to make a catalog. And she came to the meeting with a catalog she had from 1968 again, 70, of a Lucy Lepard catalog that was a bunch of index cards bound in a rubber band and put in a yellow envelope that was the work of artists from all the artists who were anybody at that time. Lucy Lepard had gathered them together and put a show together in Vancouver and Seattle, 2 different shows. And this was their catalog. It was just these cards that the artist had typed up and sent in the mail. So Jackie was like, why don't we do something like this? So what we did is Bill Lewis invited 23 people to come to his studio before the show went up, and they got to sit in front of a typewriter in front of one of his paintings, and they had to respond, and they got like 30 minutes to do it. And so we had these beautiful things that people had written, funny, poignant, weird, some were drawings, and we printed his images on the opposite side, bundled them all together with her essay. She did write like a 1-page essay, and it was really just wonderful. There was one piece in here particularly that was just such a good poem by C.L. Young. You can look them up. They're awesome poet and artist. And I took that poem and gave it to, and I think she calls it the New Colossus. Is that what it says? After Colossus, which is kind of weird because we just talked about the New Colossus. So her poem is called After Colossus, and I gave it to this jazz musician, Jens Caros, and he made a song about it and performed it at a dinner we had in the gallery underneath the painting that it was first referring. These are my favorite kind of shows, to do all this tying together. And the one last thing I'll say about that show is that I asked Bill if he would draw 24, because we had a dinner for 24 people, 24 little drawings with lemon juice on a piece of paper, because I was doing this whole study in my studio on lemon juice and burning it or getting it hot and making drawings from lemon juice on paper. And I was like, will you do this, make these drawings? He's like, sure. And so at the dinner, in the middle of the dinner, we told everybody to take the drawings out from underneath their plates and put them over the candles, and then a drawing appeared, and they all got to go home with an original Bill Lewis. And it was fun. People were squealing. It was a lot of fun. And one of the people went. It was like a golden ticket, like Willy Wonka went home with one of his drawings, like a big one framed. That was like a gift that he gave to the group. So anyway, so that was, here's like an example of filled room for his lecture, where it was a conversation between he and Alex Carver, who's really brilliant mind in Boise. And there's the dinner. And there's Jen singing the song under the painting. That was the name of the painting. It was called what did I say? Colossus. And there's one of the drawings. So after they've been put over the fire, this is what you'd get. Anyways, a lot of fun. Okay, next show is called In Love with the World, and this is Benny Maris. At Bill Lewis's show, I sold a piece to a guy who, when I went to deliver it to his house, I saw Benny's work in this guy's house. And I said, oh, I love his work. I saw his work once at another show in Texas. And he says, oh, well, he's from Boise. And did you not know that? And I said, no, I didn't know that. And so he introduced us. I gave Benny a show, and he makes this really wonderful work that's kind of a mix between painting and performance. He paints his arms and then stages them in the environment. It's a long story how he got to that, and I can tell you later, but we got to keep moving. So he had made a lot of these in the Boise River, like this one. And so again, it was like full circle. I loved the story behind his work, and it was so joyful at a time when we really, really needed this show. So, so that's what we had. So we had Benny's work. He were about 6 pieces, and we also, I don't think I have. Oh, this slide is a lighted sign that we had that we asked him to make a piece for it, and it's 2-sided. So 2 of his works went up into this lighted sign, and we opened it on the winter solstice, which is the longest day. So then these could be lit the longest. They're still up because we love it so much. We didn't put another artist in the next year. We were going to do it every year, and it's just too expensive, and we liked his work. So more of those can be seen on the Commonwealth website. Okay, this show is Margaret Pope. She was exactly what I was looking for when I was talking about experimental, like messing with the space. So she came and had a residency there, and then just brought in tons of sand and concrete forms and rebar that she shoved through the wall and from one space to the next. It was just a wonderful show. Very experimental, playful, and I just can't say enough about Margaret Pope's work. She's just really killing it. Okay, last show. This is our current show, and this is the one you got to come see. This one's called Object Lessons. Again, a funny serendipitous story of how this came about. The artist who was supposed to be in here right now broke her foot. And this is why I was even telling some of the artists today, always have your bio and your stuff ready, because you never know when someone's going to call you and say, hey, I got something for you. So I was like, what am I going to do? Because there's a lot of shows I'd like to do, but I was caught, I wasn't ready for this. So at the same moment, a friend from Marfa called me and said, oh, this woman, Lydia Ritchie, she's doing a residency at the James Castle House. You should go meet her. So we met. Loved her work. She came to Commonwealth, loved what we were doing. And this is right the same week this is all happening. And I'm thinking, I go, would you be interested in showing your work at the Commonwealth sometime? Thinking like, she's probably thinking, yeah, in a couple of years. And I'm like, in like 2 months. And she was game. And at the same time, I had been trying to get a studio visit with Corey Peak over many months, and I kept screwing it up. And I thought he was in Boise, and that was a long story. But anyway, that happened the same week. So I come over here and look at his work, and I'm like, oh, these guys would be great together. So Corey's work is now on the walls, and Lydia's work is in the middle, and both of them were ready to go within, like, I swear, like 48 hours. I had all the stuff, we had all the stuff planned. And the work came in, Corey drove it over. Lydia sent hers in boxes because she's in Philadelphia, but it's really lightweight. So it's a beautiful show. She makes all her stuff out of recycled materials and papers that she's been saving for like 30 years. And Corey makes his stuff out of recycled or, lots of different papers and catalogs. And so it's a really great team. And the funny part about this story is that they knew each other's work. I didn't know either of them, really. They knew each other for 10 years and had been communicating over the internet. And they're both so analog that to be meeting like that way, it just kind of blew my mind. And so Corey was a big fan of Lydia's. She was a fan of his. And they got to meet at the opening when we opened the show. So that was pretty fun. This is the last one. Okay, that is it. And I'm sorry to have gone so long, but I'll take any questions after that. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Catherine. We'll pause right here to end our live stream, and then we'll